Good morning, everyone. Steve here. Welcome to this edition of Monday Morning Musings, where we are diving into the social cultural background of the Epistle to Philemon, particularly the issue of slavery. Continuing on. I mentioned earlier that Colossae was a city of money. We could get into the history. It was known for its textiles, its minerals. There was money. And wealthy people had slaves. And another way we know that Philemon was wealthy is because it says he has a guest room. Only the wealthiest people in their time would have a guest room. So not only can we infer from Colossae itself as being a very vibrant economic city, but Philemon himself was wealthy. He had a guest room. And to have a slave of yours run away, there was a certain indignity that happened to you as a wealthy person, because when that slave was in your home, functioning at your behest, anything, including sexual favors, and I can't go into that too much, but the way young boys were treated, like if you were a pre-adolescent slave or a child of a slave, it would be nothing for the master to violate you sexually. We would consider it, but they wouldn't consider it violation. So even raising your children, you have to worry about your master's going to creep in at night and sodomize your son, and that would be completely acceptable. That's how bad it was, or at least how bad it appears to us. But worse than that, in their world, for the slave, that attachment to that family, even as abusive as that was the only social adherence that slave had. His miserable, microscopic sense of identity and place was tied to that family. So when a slave runs away, all his ties of sociality are gone. There's no connectivity, there's no community, there's no agency, there's no group. That runaway slave is like a free floating atom in the universe. There's no attachments. And you would think there would be pity on that slave, and that's not the way the Romans would look at it. The Romans would look at it the way the indignant outrage to a person of status that this departed slave has caused. Privileged people are often have indignation when a lesser than, doesn't give them respect or acts uppity. Well, it was worse than that. It included that, but it was worse than that in the situation of Roman slavery. So, in the sense of Philemon talking to his fellow Christians in the community, there would not be a great group of support for the victim, Onesimus. There would be nobody arguing Onesimus's case. Onesimus had no standing and voluntarily cut himself off from any sociality that he may have had. So we need to keep that in mind. Let's talk about the freedman slave for a while. Sometimes people say, well, in Rome and in the southern United States, you could free a slave. Okay. As tough as that would be in the southern United States in the 19th century, it was even tougher in Rome. Yes, that person would be considered a freedman. But that freedman, this is so important because people make a big deal out of this, still did not have social or legal equality under Roman law. A freed slave existed socially in a permanent status of subordination. So we think free, and if we project that 19th century giving slaves legal status, if we project that into this story, we're apples and oranges. A slave in Roman society would never, a freed slave would never have equality under the law. As a matter of fact, most freed slaves uh, just either adapted to the fact that the rest of their life was going to be in subordination, or they just went into exile, just disappeared and tried to start over someplace else. So when you're thinking about a freed slave, and we're going to see in the letter that Paul wrote, there are implications that he's not he's asking Philemon to relieve him of his slavery status. We're going to get into that in more detail. Even if Philemon did that, it would not give Onesimus equality of status. That's a key element of the letter to epistles, because what Paul is writing is going one step above giving equality of status under the law. That would have been incomprehensible. Just that, just under in that Roman worldview, just giving Onesimus equality of status would have been incomprehensible. Paul takes it to another level of incomprehensibility. Another thing that we have to keep in mind, in the sense of their culture. I've covered this on my series on honor and shame and patronage and Eastern culture, things that are available at the webpage catalog of videos that you can see below running across your screen. So I can't go into honor shame issues too much. But I just want to finish up this session by saying that a person of status, money, status, power, privilege, would never give away anything in the sense of charity. No, no. That just would not happen. Anyone who had food or money or extra clothes, uh, an act of kindness, in the sense giving away an act of kindness, a wealthy person would never have done that without expectations. Certain social cultural expectations in the patron client relationship. If I'm a wealthy person and I I give you food, or I take you into my household as a slave, you are obligated socio-culturally to extol how virtuous I am in the public. And sometimes uh, the head of the household would even hire someone to walk behind them, like through the public places, extolling their praises. Behold, here comes Gaius Licinius, the most benevolent man. Hey, everybody, this is Gaius, the man who gave, the poor man food. So there was this illicit charity with a hook in it. It's very much like the mafia. You got to kiss the Don's ring. The Don will be good for you, but if he's good for you, make a deal you cannot refuse. You're obligated. And that's the way kindness to a slave or charity to a slave would have worked in their world. There was no agape. There was no free will benevolence. It was all about maintaining social status. Their entire culture was built on honor and shame, building honor status, keeping honor status. So, got to keep in mind Paul's letter. It would have been so hard for them to wrap their minds around it. And sometimes I get a little perturbed at folks who say things like this in the modern age, and I'll stop with this. We're a little long today. Well, you're making it so hard on the people. That's just too hard. You shouldn't. And Jesus is a gentle shepherd, and Jesus would never make anything hard. That is somebody who has either never read Philemon and has absolutely no understanding of what was going on there and what Paul was asking of Philemon. It was hard, not just hard, cosmically hard, existentially difficult. And I'll talk to you the next time.